It is my honor to welcome into the studio here this morning Diane Sharp. Hello, Diane. How are you?
Hi, Joey. I'm great. How are you?
Diane is a candidate for the Hanford City Council District D. Diane, I want to welcome you, and I got to tell you, this election is causing a lot of, a media storm over the past couple of months. All over social media, I've been hearing about this recall election.
Yeah.
First off, tell me what kind of motivated you to get involved and be on the ballot for this election.
Well, I've always been interested in public policy. When I was at Hanford High, and this is a number of years ago, I have to admit, but I was in like a political club, and whenever the Rotarians or the Kiwanis or groups like that would have the deals where you can visit the city council or be a mock board of supervisors, I was always in on all that stuff. That was a long time ago. I've been following local issues my whole life, and what really got me into this race was I was concerned about the level of transparency that the city was providing and to its citizens. And what tipped me off on that was the lawsuit from Transparent California, which is a website that publishes data from all over the state. It has 99% of the salary and compensation information, like salary, health care and perks and the whole giant number, or a small number, depending. I guess.
A key being transparency.
The key is transparency, right. Hanford has chosen right now to be a little coy and not provide all the information to this website when all the other cities around here pretty much are doing it. And they're spending taxpayer money to pay lawyers to try to keep this information away from who? The taxpayer.
Wow.
So they're spending our own money to keep information from us. And I have time to run. I think I understand local issues, and I have a passion for public service. And so that's what drove me to this race.
This is a trend that's happening on a national level, I think, are people that are looking to make a change in their local politics and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna run, and I'm going to try to make a change within my community. And I feel like you're very motivated. You definitely come off as trying to make a change in regards to this transparency issue. But let me ask you a question: when you have a recall election, right, and a general election happening in November, but a recall election happening now, why do you think it's important that this happens now rather than in November?
Personally, I don't truly think I understand the motivation behind the folks that were doing the recall.
Gotcha.
I do know that there is a concern that Mr. Ramirez failed to follow the laws and the rules with reporting his campaign contributions. I am aware that, and I was swayed by the Kings County grand jury report that found him deficient and basically not telling the truth.
Oh, wow.
For lack of I could try to use a euphemism, but really the fact is he was caught telling an untruth regarding the donations, and I just think the public deserves better. The recall is expensive.
But if we have a situation where potentially someone is lying, potentially someone is not providing truth to their position, the recall election should happen. Is that what you're saying? And it should happen now, because, I mean, you don't want to waste any time of having an elected official in office that long.
It's a tough question.
Okay.
Because there are a variety of issues that come into play: the cost of the election, the opportunity of having someone else in the office besides the person that's currently serving, and I'm just following the will of the people. I guess the reason I would say I was in support of the recall is because there were, I should know the exact number, but like 1,000 people that signed a signature,
and allowed for this to happen.
Signature. So I'm just going with the will of the people.
Now, is it hard to kind of get away from what is actually being portrayed out there on social media with, I spoke to Mr. Ramirez earlier this morning. Mm-hmm. He brought up Hanford Lies, a website that he's created to talk about his truth. Mm-hmm. And then you have other people blasting Ramirez with flyers of fraudulent and this and that. I mean, is it hard to kind of make your way with all that's going on, or have you seen that going out, talking to the community, and promoting yourself? Have you seen the responses in a positive way when you speak to them and say, hey, you know what, I'm here to make a change?
I've gotten tremendous positive response.
That's
really, what's the word I want? It's
overwhelming.
Really touching.
And touching, yeah.
Blown away, actually, by people who have known me my whole life, that are so excited that I'm running. And so it's very gratifying. People will stop me when I'm out in town and just say, hey, good job. We need people like you in government. And so it really has been overwhelming is a good way to put it.
That's great, and it's great to see that you're getting that response. Now, tell me a little bit about your platform and some of the things that you'd like to really change if you're elected.
If we can, before I do that, I'd like to go back to the second half of your previous question, which had to do how do you stay the course when there's all this noise, let's say, going back and forth on social media. I think primarily Facebook. And the way you do that is you just run your own race. I went in with built a strategy, and I'm executing my strategy. And if it turns out that the people of District D who are voting in this election like the strategy, then I have a shot at winning. And if not, then I'm not their gal, and so be it. Let's move on. And so I shouldn't say I just totally tune that stuff out, but I take it with a grain of salt.
Of course. No, I think that's great. So, and I'm glad that you reiterated why, some of that distractions can cause a stir, but at the same time, if you run your own race, you don't have to worry about what's going on in that route. You know what I mean?
Right. You don't want to get your head turned spending time trolling social media when you should be out talking to the people of District D and finding out from them what their issues are and what they're looking for in a public official.
Absolutely. So once again, let's talk about your platform. Let's talk about some of the things that you want to change. Let's just say you're elected Councilwoman District D. What are you going to change?
Well, I mentioned the transparency issue earlier, and I'd like to reiterate or to say that there are a lot of things in the city of Hanford that I think are going well. But we do have a disconnect, a public relations disconnect between, I've been told just from talking to folks, between the citizens and the city apparatus. The old firehouse is an example where there are a lot of people in town that care about the old buildings and want to feel like they have ownership in them. And in fact, and I mean that in a general sense, in an emotional sense, because it's part of what makes Hanford Hanford. And I think that should be encouraged. And so the city council, but the city council took the firehouse issue and buried the demolition of the firehouse on consent calendar. And so what a consent calendar is a lot of public entities have them, and it's a whole bunch of items that are sort of considered to be just routine, not important, not that big of a deal, stuff you usually approve all the time. So you just take care of it with one vote. You take care of however many items are on this consent calendar. So it's really just sort of speed up the expediency of government. So to bury something like demoing the firehouse, my grandfather was fire chief when that firehouse was constructed.
And we're talking about the old fire station.
The old fire
that's
station.
about to be demolished.
Right, over on Lacey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lacey and Phillips. And it was just a public relations nightmare for the city to conduct business that way. And so I think we need to clean up some of that stuff. That's one of the main things I want to do. I also want to make sure that we are, I'm concerned about the parks. And it would appear from what I still have a lot to learn, but from what I've seen so far, that the accessibility, the number of acres of accessible parks that we have here in Hanford is below average for cities like us. And so I think we need to pay attention to that. We should have if we're well managed, we should have the funds to do it. I was just reading a report on impact fees. Millions and millions of dollars come in on impact fees. What impact fees are basically taxes on everybody that buys a brand new house. When a guy wants to build a subdivision, let's say there are 100 houses, each house has to pay impact fees on fire, on police, on parks, on sewer, and on water. And these range, as I recall, like between a couple $100 per house up to $500 per house, times the different 5 groups. And so that gets passed on to the people that buy the houses. And so there's money there to take care of some of these things. And I just think there's an opportunity. I just want it to be managed well and out in the open, and so that people think they are knowing what's going on in their city.
No, I think that's a common theme from what we've talked about here this morning about transparency. So I want to make sure that I'm giving each candidate equal amount of time. So before you go here this morning, I want to give you one last shot to talk to the voters out there and let them know why Diane Sharp should be the next person to take the job of the Hanford City Council District D.
Okay, well, hi, voters. I'm not sure where to look,
right,
but I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity to Joey. I'm the most experienced candidate. I've got school board experience. I've got first 5 commission experience. I was on the state fair board for 8 years and chairman for 2. I understand the ag economy. I understand the downtown economy, being part of a family that's been part of the downtown community for over 100 years. And I'm anxious to see what I can do to make Hanford a better place.
There it is. Diane Sharp, thank you so very much, and good luck next week in the election.
Okay, thank you, Joey.
All right. Eggs, bacon, and Joey, folks, stay with us. Don't go anywhere.